Have you ever taken someone up on an offer of, well, if there's anything I can do to help, let me know, and if so, how did it end up? Years ago, when my dad died, his right-hand man at work offered to do anything to help us. We found out we had to move on 24 hours notice, 400 miles away. Mom was too hesitant to ask. We didn't have any options on so little time. So I insisted she call him. He shows up, not 4 hours later, with literally everyone from his job site, with all their pickups, and a few small moving trucks trailers. We vacated within 24 hours easily. I've completely lost touch with them, but I'll never forget them for doing that. It was completely surprising to me because that guy had complained about my dad quite a few times, but always helped him out, even when doing personal things for him on his off days. Why the frick did you have 20 move in 24 hours? A relative of an acquaintance needed help recovering family photos from a broken PC. I was just going to do a quick repair and bill the guy, but I felt really bad for him, so I took the extra time to consult him about backing up data and suggested an external drive. We found one for him, but he was waffling on the price, so I cut his bill down a bit and told him to just order it while I was there. At that point I think he realized I wasn't benefiting from any further contact, and he offered to help me out if I ever needed a hand with anything electrical, as he was a retired electrician. Short version is I had some light switches that when flicked would flicker several other rooms nearby lights. I asked this guy if he could just come assess what I needed and what it should cost for me whenever he had time. He came over for about 30 minutes, tinkered with the wall plates and said I don't know, then went home having repaid his blood debt. The end made me laugh. Didn't expect that. LMAO. This is a reverse story. Someone on Facebook was trying to get out of an abusive relationship. She had left the person many times only to come back to the person. I knew the person from years before, but I really only knew her through a friend. I had seen the person in real life maybe twice. I gave the offer if there is anything I can do for you in a Facebook message. To my surprise she said yes, can I stay with you for a few months? I said sure, since I had the spare room and my friend that was close friends with her said she was a good person. I let her into my home for 4 months. In that time she had a friend come over for her birthday, and little did I know I will be meeting my future wife and life mate. We have now been together for 8 years with our love going strong. So my offer really paid off in my case, despite the fact I was really scared to have this relative stranger move into my spare bedroom. My friend was right. She is a good person. Unfortunately she did move back in with the abusive boyfriend for about a year until another situation broke out and she moved out permanently. She is now in a new relationship in a different part of the country with someone else and has been for many years now. Someone who is not abusive. So hooray for both of us. I'm happy to read this. It is crazy for us to all to think about our life choices and how they've led us to where we are now. The circumstances around meeting our significant others being a big one. Good deed paid off in this scenario for you, friend. Shame she moved back with the abuser, but glad she got out, and kudos for you for helping like that. A relative of mine had passed away, leaving me the entire estate. Part of that was a boat. When I was at the house sorting things out, a neighbor came over and introduced himself. I hadn't met him before, as he had just moved in a year earlier. At one point, we ended up talking that boat. As we were talking, he said he had to get back to the wife and to let him know if there was anything he could do. Jokingly, I asked him if he wanted to buy the boat and gave him a price. He sort of laughed, as most people would do. About an hour later, he sent me a text asking if I was serious about selling the boat. When he left, he went straight home and asked his wife and then went to the bank to get the money. I said yes, and he had the money to me that evening and took possession of the boat. I will add some additional info, since there were a lot of the same questions. The boat was a higher end based boat. I knew the price of it when it was purchased and what it was worth when I sold it. The neighbor had seen it many times and also knew the condition. I sold the boat for a little less than what it worth, so I would make sure that he would consider it for that price and hopefully buy it. He did. Haha. There is a lake nearby the house that hosts all kinds of Bassmaster events, so there are quite a few base boats for sale in the area. If I had the time I would have priced it normally and let it sit on the market for a while. I am happy that I sold it for less though. It went to a great family and they saved some cash on it. They still have it in the boathouse and still use it today. When my wife was diagnosed with cancer, The first months were a pain and she went through a lot of tests and treatment options. We were always nervous with the results and had consultations and tests booked all around. Amidst all that, we forgot to pay our electricity bills. It was not a money issue, we just completely forgot about it. We pay our electricity bill using the company's app, and the app didn't warn you about late bills. They used letters for that, and since we did everything with the app, we never even saw the notices they'd send you before cutting your energy. Well, they went to our apartment to cut the electricity and we were shocked. We asked them if we could just pay it immediately, but the system had a 24-hour time to register the payment, so we would be without energy for that period. When we were talking to the electricity company guy about it, a neighbor passed by and asked if he could help. We just answered we had no idea and explained the situation. We were new in the building, so we didn't know our neighbors at all. This 60-year-old man with grey hair and a somewhat surfer look to him just mobilized an entire operation with his fellow neighbors to grant us electricity. In less than an hour, we had power extensions coming from our back and front windows from apartments of different floors to feed some of our home appliances. Since it is not advised to use refrigerators and extensions, a group of old ladies just came in and shared our refrigerator's food among themselves to store it temporarily. They even cooked us our meal after all this stuff. I got to know the 60-year-old surfer during the time I lived there and he was really something. Both him and his brother lived in the same building and both helped me. The surfer guy was actually very active in the surfing scene during the 60s and 70s and had an amazing story of a few years past coming out of sea addiction. His older brother was, surprisingly, a video game enthusiast, but mostly hooked on somehow historical games. Honestly, I would never expect to discuss the release of Red Dead Redemption 2 with a guy almost 70 years old, but that happened. Well, in the end I got to know half the building on a single day. Loved living there and I really miss living in a building where everybody knows each other like that. The one I live in today is better in quality overall, but so impersonal. For anyone asking about my wife, she is fine. Breast cancer is pretty terrifying. She had a mastectomy back then, but no new signals in the past checkups. Holy crap, I didn't expect to get choked up in a thread like this, but I did. Happy life's path to you and your wife. May you always have wonderful neighbors. My then pregnant wife started bleeding from somewhere down there at about 20 weeks. Having suffered a miscarriage before, we both had obvious fears. The closest family was an hour away. We called 3 ex-normie friends at 11 PM at night to see if they can watch our 2-year-old on the monitor while family arrived. No answers. Jumped into a Discord group chat where a few old WoW guildies were hanging out, playing some Apex. Asked one who I knew lived close by, who was a father to 2 ex-girls already, and would have understood being safe. He was there in under 5, and we were on our way to the hospital in no time. Absolute bro. No miscarriage, just a bit of blood coming from the placenta. Second baby girl delivered 18 weeks later, with 10 little fingers and 10 little toes. Sorry for the stealing your Apex buddy, boys. I was put on complete bed rest during month 5 while pregnant with our second kiddo. That means you stay in bed on couch, lie on your left side as much as possible, absolutely do not get up unless it's to use the bathroom, and resign yourself to showering only 2 times a week. For 4 months. Did I mention I had a 5-year-old? 2? And that of course me being on bed rest meant my rockstar husband was working much longer hours, and taking care of all the food prep and house cleaning, so here I am, spending all day in bed for months, trying to entertain a 5-year-old all day, and going slowly crazy. My mom came up several times a week to help, but she couldn't just move in. My father is older and has several chronic health issues. Plus I normally help several times a week with taking care of my grandmother, and of course couldn't do that. Everyone was stretched to capacity, and we were all also emotionally drained from the terror that we might lose the baby. I'd had a miscarriage earlier in the year we conceived her. My closest friends and our life group from church asked what can we do, and I swallowed my pride and said anything. Everything. These women came over with food, prepped lunches for me and my daughter that she could reach in the fridge while my husband was gone during the day, cleaned my house, did our laundry. Their husbands mowed our grass and did small repairs my husband just didn't have time to do right then. Couples took turns hosting our daughter for play dates, both some during the day to give me a break and some in the evenings to give my husband one. And then, they set up the entire nursery, painted the walls, put our crib back together, hung the art on the walls, made sure my breast pump was still in good working order, hung all the clothes, sorted the diapers, painted a small table. It was amazing. To this day everyone still feels a bit proprietary toward our youngest, just turned 4. They all invested a lot of time and energy in that pregnancy. That's such a wonderful story. Huzzah for communities coming together. One time my dad told me to change this light bulb in my house and it was pretty high up and I definitely needed some help so I wouldn't fall to my death. Well, these Jehovah's Witness guys knock on my door, give their pitch and then they end it with "Thanks for talking to us. Is there anything that we can help you with?" So I asked, actually, would you guys mind helping me change a light bulb, and they were more than happy to help me out. Super nice guys. A few years ago I was going through a rough patch and one night I got caught up late at work. I was in a panic about letting my dog out and getting her dinner because my break was only 20 minutes and I lived across town. A friend lived nearby and I asked her to take out the dog and feed her. The friend sent me a pic of my pup happily prancing in the yard. A pretty simple favor in the grand scheme of things, but the peace of mind in that moment and time in my life was worth so much. It also made me better about asking for help when I need it. My friend was happy to do it and it made a huge difference for me. I learned I wasn't a burden for needing help sometimes. People mean it. My wife got a new job and we were leaving town. Good friends offered to help. Our oldest son didn't want to switch schools for senior year. He stayed with them for senior year. A friend of mine who did senior portrait photography was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I'm an art photographer. I told him that I'd do anything to help. He said he didn't want to leave his clients in a lurch. I spent about 3 months finishing his season. My friend with pancreatic cancer was supposed to get married in June, but the doctors told him that he might not make it to June or be in any shape to get married then if he did. Everybody pulled out all the stops to make his wedding happen fast. The venue, the caterer, and especially the photographer who we didn't know but whose work we admired. She was originally supposed to handle just shooting and deliver raw files. She founded a videographer who volunteered to do it free, added a second shooter, and she did the editing. I had twins 3 months ago. I took all the help. I am taking all the help. Some great advice I got was this: if someone offers help, give them 3 options: an easy, medium and hard. For example, would you be willing to bring me coffee, help with laundry, or watch the girls for a few hours while I take a nap? That way, they choose and you don't feel like you're putting them out. It's been amazing. People genuinely love being there for others, and realizing I can take help has been a huge area of growth for me. Anyone asking me if they can help me, that's so incredibly sweet. Please pass along your generosity to those around you, or donate in my honor to Planned Parenthood or your local women's shelter. They always need baby clothes, rockers, swings, things like that. Take all the help is the best advice I got when I had twins. Wouldn't have survived otherwise. We had plans to hang out and I cancelled because I got very sad. I needed someone to be with me while I broke down and I didn't want to bother anyone while sad. But I asked if they could come anyway and they came. They stayed. They listened and they didn't judge me in the slightest. They even checked up the next few days and met up with me again. I was so worried that I was burdening them, and I have really bad anxiety about being too much, but they made me feel so normal and justified in those moments. It really made me recognize that my anxiety is just that, anxiety. A family friend of ours owned 2 restaurants at the time, and one was local and very hidden, so only locals really went. During this year, a young girl in town had cancer and needed to raise money for treatment. They decided to do a pancake breakfast fundraiser at the restaurant that day, where all proceeds would go to the girl's family. My family and a friend of mine, we were 12, came and ate pancakes, and the place got really busy because the news team came by to report on it. It was getting to be too much for the owners, so my siblings, friend and I asked if there was anything we could do to help. I didn't know if I could because we were young, but we offered. At first they didn't want us to worry, but we insisted and they asked if we could wait on tables and handle the dishes. We were there all day and practically dropped dead when we got home. But in the end they raised more than enough for the treatment, so it was a success. I've had a few important people die over the last few years, and well-meaning people will often say let me know if there's anything I can do to help, without realizing that it's so unlikely that someone in that position will have the ability to articulate a simple enough need or favor that they'd feel comfortable requesting, especially considering that I'd get those messages from people I barely knew. What favors do you ask someone you barely know when they ask, especially when it feels like your whole world just fell apart? Where do you start? Some people are great at talking to someone when they are grieving though, and they'll volunteer specific actions in more of an I insist kind of way rather than leaving the brunt of the decision making up to me. One such person reached out to me a few weeks ago when my mother died and specifically wanted to help me with groceries or items I needed. My dad and I are both struggling with stuff like that, and honestly what bothers me more than a lack of groceries is a lack of the ability to help my dad when we're both grieving the loss of the most important person in our life. So I asked her if she could help my dad with some of his favorite groceries. The next day she texted me the delivery window. I requested this so I could carry them for him since his knees aren't great, and sure enough, 4 or 5 bags of groceries and a huge bag of dog food showed up at his front door. It made me feel so good to rally anyone around him other than myself, even for a moment. I am used to feeling this kind of pain, but I can't stand the thought of him going through it too. So it was much easier to accept help on his behalf. Maybe not exactly like your post says, but I realized one of my friends was a true friend when she remembered the times I had helped her on college homework projects. She mentioned those times and decided to pay it back by buying me a meal when I had no money. A couple months later I simply asked if she had time to talk while I was going through some stuff with my GF at the time, and she was more than willing to do so. As a matter of fact, she started calling me before I had even been able to see her reply back saying yes, I can talk right now. That's really when I knew how genuine of a friend she is. We still FaceTime every now and then about deeper personal stuff going on, but I know that she is very genuine and probably one of the most real people I've met so far. I'm not sure if she knows it, but I really appreciate her a lot and I'm very thankful I've had her to talk to whenever. Even when she didn't know I had been going through some stuff, just simply talking helped. So I guess it was one of those things where simply asking to talk when I had been in a bad place turned out to be rewarding, and realized she is a lot more great than I thought, and of course I returned the favor. On another note, I usually tend to be the one that helps out if someone is struggling. Giving back is important sometimes. I've stayed late at college a few times just helping out friends. It was honestly kinda emotional for me when that friend that I mentioned reminded me of the time I helped her out. I'm not sure if she knows it, but I really appreciate her a lot and I'm very thankful I've had her to talk to whenever. Even when she didn't know I had been going through some stuff, just simply talking helped. Tell her. Close buddy went onto my Facebook and blocked my ex. Removed all pictures, posts, references of us. Changed my profile picture. All that good stuff. I text my friends to make plans and they don't respond. A friend of mine and I worked in the same office for years and years. We didn't really start out as friends, just sort of talked outside while smoking on our breaks. Her boyfriend died in a fire that destroyed their home and she turned into a single mother of a baby overnight. Without mentioning it to her, I started asking around for clothing and items she would need immediately to help take care of her baby. A lot of people donated stuff, and when I gave her the boxes, she teared up. After that, I decided to bring in more than I would actually eat for lunch and would casually tell her, "I'm full. You want the other half of my sandwich?" Eventually she caught on and thanked me. I was of the mind that if I was in a position to help, I would. Never really expected anything in return. I just knew things were tight and she made sure her kid had something to eat even if she had to skip meals. So, yeah, fast forward a few years and the company we're working for starts laying people off. She had already left and found employment elsewhere. I decided to file for disability after being diagnosed with a handful of issues that made working rather painful and difficult, and my severance had run out. She found out and made it a point to randomly stop by and drop off cigarettes or a few groceries she knew I would need. She told me I'd helped her at her lowest. She was just returning the favor. To me, that's what true friendship is. You help when you can, and accept help when you need it. There shouldn't be any shame in that sort of give and take. For those asking, I'm in a better place now and doing well. Filing for disability has been an eye-opening experience. to say the least. LOL. My friend and I don't talk every day, but we're still always there for each other when needed. You're a good person. She's a good person. Good people everywhere make the world better. Hope you're doing better now. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.